Hi, and welcome to Paper Cuts with Colleen. I'm Colleen, and we are talking about collage. We are to the last step in the collaging process, which is finalizing the collage. So until this point, it is basically just a whole bunch of pieces of paper together in a pile. And after this point, it will be a composition that stays together when you pick it up and turn it upside down. True test. So what we're going to do is we are going to use an adhesive to combine those layers of paper to one another. There's lots of artists that use glue, that use liquid adhesive. I prefer personally to use dry adhesive. I started my process like that because I am cheap. True story, many years ago, I was at a store, a craft store was closing down, and they had a ridiculous number of tapes, double-sided tapes that they had on sale for so cheap. And I ended up buying a whole bunch. And so when I started collaging, it was something I already had to use. I didn't have to buy anything, and I just got really used to it. I love it because it is, it doesn't make a huge mess all over my desk. And a lot of the paper that I'm working with is actually quite fragile. And for me, I find that not introducing a liquid to that kind of fragility of that fiber helps to create stability with another form, another material, this double-sided sticky tape. So here you will see I have a lovely composition. This is a delicious ice cream fudge bar headed man wearing a suit who is breaking through, obviously, bricks, as you do when your head is made of delicious chocolate-coated vanilla ice cream. And so what we are going to do is we are going to secure him to make sure that he stays together in all his form. So the way we are going to use this is we are going to use our tape. I use something called Scor-Tape. You can see a review on Paper Cuts channel. And what Scor-Tape is, it is a double-sided paper-backed adhesive. That means that both sides are sticky, but one of the sides is covered up, which makes it a lot easier to use when you're putting it down on the page. So how I use this is I just grab the roll, it comes in a nice handy roll, and I cut a little bit off. I kind of start planning where I'm gonna, what I'm gonna back first. So you can see I'm using it first on the back of the actual ice cream. And I'm kind of going around the contour or the outline of the shape. It's not like super specific. It's not going around to the point where it's fitting every edge. I'm just kind of making sure that when I tape this down, there's not going to be kind of loose ends or pieces, edges that are going to be so loose that they're going to get caught against other pieces of paper or just kind of fold up on themselves. So I'm kind of adding some around here. And the way I do it is I do use my blade and I cut them out off of the roll. You can tear this, so if that's an easier way for you to work, feel free to do that. I also choose to mount my collages on a backing paper. So this mounting paper I'm using is a very thick cardstock. It gives a lot of stability to my collage. I really like that because it also helps me kind of get the collage in space. Some of my collages are kind of off center or asymmetrical in the place that they lay on the page, and so it's kind of a nice way for me to get a better idea of where it's going to be in space. The pros of that is it is going to give you kind of a thicker base for your collage that will help create stability. Kind of a minus of that is it might change or alter the way that you go about framing it at a later point. So those are kind of something to think about. I prefer to use either black or white as mounting paper. Of course, if you have another color in mind, you can as well. So I'm just kind of starting. I've got one element that's pretty much backed with the tape the way I'd like it, but I have not peeled off the paper backing. With the larger kind of background portion of this composition, I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to tape it down while it's on that backing. So you can see I'm kind of lifting a corner and I'm going to go ahead and peel off that tape. I've kind of eyeballed it and made sure that it's straight. It's where I want it to be on the page. I find that measuring and using a ruler at this stage works for some people, but for me, I find that it kind of ends up shifting the paper. I'm never going to get it perfect, so it's easier for me to eyeball it, to get it down on the page, and then if I need to trim the mounting paper in the background, if it's slightly off, that's an easier step in the process for me. So as you can see, I'm kind of using my X-Acto blade, and I'm using the tape to go around, and I'm peeling off that paper backing. You do get some debris in this process, so keep a trash can handy. That's what I do, but it still kind of gets everywhere in my studio. So fair warning. And again, I'm turning the collage to kind of just make it a little bit easier as I'm going over this process. So you can see again, I'm sticking the tape down. And the goal of this is to make sure the adhesive and the paper is smooth. It's easier to do this kind of in different steps of different objects, so you're not taping down, let's say, this brick wall and the man's suit at the same time, because it's more likely that tape is going to be across those two pieces of paper in maybe a way that they're not both laying completely flat. So if you go through and you do one element at a time, it makes it a little bit easier and a little bit more consistent. It's not as easy to get it bubbled. So again, I'm kind of making sure that I'm pressing down on this Scor-Tape. Scor-Tape is extremely sticky. So it is not so sticky that it's going to glue my fingers together. But it's sticky enough that once I put it down, I want to make sure that I've committed to the exact spot that I want. So you'll see just kind of where, as I'm working my way around, I'm kind of using the medium and seeing where it's kind of easier to put it down on the mounting paper and where it's easier to put it on this brick wall that I'm gluing down. So you can also see this edge has a slight curve up right here. That's kind of the natural curl of the paper after having been in the seam of a magazine for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 decades. So what I'm going to do is this side, I'm going to actually go right up against the edge of that brick wall image that I'm using. You can see it's fairly close here. So when I peel off that back layer, which you can just peel off using your thumb, comes off fairly easily. And then I'm going to just make sure that it's kind of down the surface. It holds down the surface of that curl. Then I'm going to go along this edge. And one good thing about for me, that I like about Scor-Tape too, is that it's acid-free. So that means that it's got a neutral pH. It's not going to damage or discolor any of the paper that you're using. The nature of collage and the nature of using paper that was not meant to be archival back in the day is that it will age and discolor over time. Just the fact that it is an older fiber in the world. So this kind of helps ensure that I'm not contributing to that discoloration by using tape that would possibly discolor in the areas where the tape is located. So now you can see I've gotten the bottom of the image completely taped down. I'm just going to actually add in a few other pieces right at the top. This is not going to be so secured down that no air, nothing is going to get through. So I'm just doing a couple pieces at the top. And I'm also using the tip of my blade to kind of help guide the tape into specific areas. And as you can see, I'm kind of also peeking up on the edge a little bit as I grab that backing tape until I can pull it, and then I'm pulling it free. So again, I'm laying this down, and now you can see that I pretty much, the only thing that I have left to tape on the backing board is the suit. So because the suit is behind the bricks, it's easier to kind of do it while it's still within the composition. I'm not taking that whole entire piece out and then trying to take off the backing tape and then reinsert it into the composition, because there's a much higher likelihood that the sticky side, the super sticky side of this double-sided tape will get stuck as I'm inserting this piece back into this brick kind of encasement that it's in. So I'm doing this while it's already in the composition. Actually, this one I'm going to do a little smaller. You can get kind of very small into very small corners, which you'll see eventually as I go through this process. And so, guy's kind of, he's taped down at the his very collar. And then what I'm going to do is, you can see these kind of little brick areas. As you can imagine, if this was even slid in the wrong direction, this could very well get a piece of paper under it and then tear. So this could kind of tear up, and then the whole composition would kind of be ruined. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and use very tiny, as you can see, very small kind of tick size pieces of this double-sided adhesive tape to go along here. And again, it's on my X-Acto blade, and the adhesive side is up. And what I'm doing is I'm going right along the side of one of these bricks. I'm using my fingernail to kind of get it in place, and then I'm going to go ahead and peel off that backing. And again, this does take a little bit of time and a little bit of patience, but it's going to help you kind of ultimately get a nice, clean result. So you can see, also don't try not to cut on your mounting tape because it will leave a mark. There you go. So another brick down. I don't usually do every single tiny corner or edge of my collage. But I try and make sure everything is generally held down in place and is going to be pretty secure for storage or for framing. And again, I'm going to make this a little smaller. I'm going to go along this side. So you can see I'm peeling off the back of that tape. And there you go. So you're working your way around that composition. You're making sure that you have kind of making all corners, or most of the corners that you feel like are going to have some ability to be torn if paper gets under there. There's another one. And you go ahead, put a piece of tape, and peel that backing off, and then firmly press, and voila, just like that. Your collage is beginning to pass the upside down test. It is not going to fall apart. There you go. So what we're going to do, the last step in this, is we are going to kind of clear away some of this paper backing, and I'm going to peel the double-sided adhesive backing off of this ice cream bar that will be the man's head. Before, I'm going to kind of just make sure that I have a general idea of where it's going to go. I'm going to try and make it kind of look like it's poking out of his head. So that's kind of the placement of it. And the way I do this is I usually start from the bottom. Just start with like the lowest, well, the ones that are going, I guess I should say, the closest to the collage that you're going to be joining it to. So in this case, I'm going to be joining it at the base of the ice cream sandwich, or the ice cream bar, and towards his head. And as you can see, it does get pretty sticky, so you've got to be really careful. I just kind of moved it and it stuck. So you're lining it up, and then you're pressing down on those areas. So the reason I haven't done all of them at once, or had one large piece of tape going on along the entire exterior of the shape, is because it is super sticky, and if you make kind of a wrong move, then it's very easy for it to go in the wrong position. So then as I kind of place it down and smooth it down, make sure that it's laying smooth and flat on the surface, I'm peeling these off along the way. If you have an area where that tape goes a little bit over the edge, you can feel free to bend that back over. The dry adhesive I'm using is quite thin. There's not a, there's no kind of depth to the collage once it's finished from the tape. So for me, it's easy to kind of fold it over and to make sure that those edges are kind of clean. So when you're all finished, you have your collage, and it has been completely taped down, and it is ready for whatever your next step is. If you want to photograph it, if you want to scan it, share it online like I do. If you want to frame it, if you want to give it away, sell it, it's at the point where the possibilities are endless. So I hope you enjoyed our how-to on how to finalize your collage. If you want to see more of my work, you can check it out. It is all over the web. And if you like what I'm doing, check out my Patreon page. All your support is so appreciated. So thanks guys, have a great one. Bye.